AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have not one but two new open source video generators, which are state of the art. Google unleashes the best AI model out there, Gemini 3, plus by far the best image editor out there, Nanobanana Pro. But did you know this week xAI also released their top model, Grok 4.1, and then OpenAI also dropped their best coding model. This new AI is now the best one for detecting and segmenting objects. Look how good this is. We have another top 3D model generator, which includes full body prediction. We have a tiny open source deep research agent, which is just as good as OpenAI's deep research. This AI can accurately create a 3D map from just a few images or a video, even if the video is super chaotic and high action. Now, in addition to Gemini 3, we also have an open source Omni model, which is quite tiny, but this can also understand not only text, but images and audio. Google DeepMind also unleashes probably the most advanced weather forecasting model we have right now, and a lot more. So let's jump right in. First up, this AI is incredibly powerful. It's called DepthAnything 3, and this can create a 3D map of a space just from a few pictures or videos. So here are a few examples. You can basically take a few pictures of a scene, or basically take a video of yourself walking around the scene, and you can walk around different rooms. This can be quite a large scene. It doesn't really matter. This AI is able to capture most of the detail and generate a very coherent 3D scene from your input. Here's another example where it takes in this reference video in the top left corner, and it's able to not only generate a 3D animation of the scene, but also the depth and the geometry of the scene. Now, they chose this video in particular because it's pretty tricky. The people are running all over the place, plus the camera movement is also all over the place. Everything is very high action, but it's able to reconstruct everything and estimate the depth of everything very well. Now, instead of just the video, here are some examples where we can plug in a ton of images, and it can easily reconstruct a 3D scene from that. Or here's another example where not only can it generate a 3D scene, but it can also generate the depth of the scene. Here are some example comparisons with other similar models. So this new DepthAnything 3 is on the far right, and as you can see, it's a lot faster, it covers more space, plus it's a lot more accurate, including both the depth and the geometry. In fact, if you compare DepthAnything 3, which is the blue area, with other state-of-the-art models, you can see that it beats the rest of them in terms of camera pose accuracy and also reconstruction accuracy. The awesome thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've already released a GitHub repo. So if you click on this and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Notice that they've released a ton of different model versions depending on the size. So for example, the largest one is called DA3 Nested Giant Large. What a mouthful of a name, but this is only 1.4 billion parameters, and this is the one that has the most features. If you click on the GitHub repo and look for this file, this is only like 7 gigabytes in size, so it should be able to fit within most consumer-grade GPUs. Anyways, all the links are up here, plus there are some interactive demos for you to try out on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this in the description below. Also this week, Meta drops SegmentAnything Model 3, or SAM3 for short. This is an AI that can detect, segment, and track objects in images and video. So you would feed it an image or a video, and you can either click on the frame to get it to automatically select or deselect objects, as you can see in these examples, or you can also get it to select objects using a text prompt. So if you type zebra, it's going to select all the zebras. Alternatively, if you type elephant, it's going to select elephant. Notice that if you have a ton of objects of the same category, you can just type in a prompt to select all of them at once. Here are some more trickier high action scenes for your reference, and as you can see, SAM3 is just incredibly good at actually segmenting and tracking everything that you specify, even if the scene is super chaotic. And if you look at these benchmarks, comparing SAM3, which are the bars in blue, with other competitor models, notice that for all these benchmarks, SAM3 beats the other leading AI models in terms of segmentation, including concept segmentation, visual segmentation, vision, as well as counting objects and reasoning. Now this is blazing fast. Here it says for a single image, it can detect more than 100 objects in just 30 milliseconds on just an H200 GPU. Now I'm sure most of you don't have this lying around in your basement, but even with a consumer GPU, this thing is very fast. The awesome thing is, as with the previous versions of SAM, this one is also open source. So here they've released the models on Hugging Face. Note that the total size of everything is like 7 gigabytes, so you should be able to run it on most consumer-grade GPUs. And then if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. All the links are down here on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, in addition to SAM 3, Meta also releases SAM 3D. This is a super powerful 3D model generator. All you need to do is feed it an image, and it can convert your specified objects within that frame into very accurate 3D models. So for example, you can choose to click on this building and it would generate a 3D model from that. Or you can click on any object in a scene to generate the 3D object. So here's an example where you can click on like different objects in this photo to generate many 3D objects, and here is your result. Notice how accurate everything is. Now, SAM 3D is also specialized in generating human bodies. This includes irregular poses and postures like this. So here's a scene of these people doing yoga. So this is not a common pose, but as you can see, SAM 3 is able to detect and accurately generate the poses of everyone in the scene. Now, if you compare SAM 3D with the other leading 3D generators out there, including Trellis or Hunyuan 3D or Trippo or Hi3D-Gen, all of which I've covered on my channel before, notice that across all these benchmarks, SAM 3D performs the best. However, note that for Hunyuan 3D, these are tested on version 2 and 2.1, even though they've already released version 2.5 and version 3. So I don't know why they're comparing with such old models. Anyways, here is the win rate between SAM 3D versus all these other competitors for 3D shape and texture preference. And as you can see, for the majority of the time, the user selected SAM 3D as the winner. Here are some other benchmarks for your reference. This time it's on like accurately reconstructing a human body mesh. And as you can see, again, SAM 3D outperforms the rest of these competitors. It also has the highest win rate compared to all these other human mesh predictors. Now, like SAM 3, they've also released SAM 3D. Notice that here it links to two different GitHub repos. One is to SAM 3D objects, which are for reconstructing objects, and then this one, SAM 3D body, as the name implies, is for reconstructing human bodies. And if you click on these GitHub repos and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. It also looks like they've released an online demo for you to try out. So let's click on this, and here let's choose this photo and see if it can accurately detect the pose of this human. So let's click generate. And here's what we get. Pretty impressive how it's even able to correctly generate the hands and the fingers of this dude. Very nice. Anyways, all the links are down here on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Also this week, we might have a top open source video generator. It's called HunyuanVideo 1.5 by Tencent, and this is quite a lightweight model of only 8.3 billion parameters. Note that WAN 2.2 is like 14 billion parameters, so this can definitely run on most consumer-grade GPUs. However, not only is it lightweight, but it's actually pretty good quality. For example, here's the prompt down below, and here's the resulting video. It's pretty high quality, and it's able to capture her subtle emotions. Or here is a figure skater performing, and everything is also anatomically correct. Here's another anatomy test, and as you can see, it's able to generate this dude jumping up with limbs outstretched. Everything looks pretty good in this generation. Here's another example, and this is also very impressive. It's also great at rendering text. So here's your prompt below. There should be a neon sign showing this. And indeed, that's what it generates. It's also great with physics. So here's a soda can slowly crushed by a hand. And it does look physically correct. Or here's another example. It's also great at following your prompt and following your specified camera movements. So for example, if you get the camera to slowly pan down to reveal a cat, here's what we get. Very nice. Or let's get the camera to gradually pull back and rise to reveal a vast desert landscape. And it's also able to follow this very well. And yes, this can also do image to video, which I'm sure most of you are going to use. So you can upload an image to use as the start frame of the generation. So here's one example, and as you can see, it can create some super nice and cinematic shots. Now here are the specs of this. Like I said, this is 8.3 billion parameters, so even just this base model can run on a minimum of 14 gigabytes of VRAM, with some model offloading. Because this is open source, I'm sure there's going to be even more quantized versions or GGUFs that can run on even lower VRAM. Now unfortunately, this does not do sound, so all these generations are silent, and like the previous generation, this also does videos of 5 to up to 10 seconds in duration. And at least for the base model, this can natively output up to 720p resolution. However, they've also introduced this video super resolution enhancement, which enables you to basically upscale your video to 1080p. Here's the really impressive thing. Apparently, they claim that this is even better than the current leading open source video generator, WAN 2.2. So HunyuanVideo 1.5 is the bar on the left, and then WAN 2.2 is the second column. As you can see, it's even better than WAN in terms of instruction following and visual quality, structural stability, and motion effects. And also, here's another chart showing the win rate of Hunyuan versus these other competitor models. And as you can see, Hunyuan has a much higher win rate than WAN 2.2, 17.12% higher. Now that's just text to video. Here's image to video, and again, Hunyuan seems to have a slightly higher win rate than WAN 2.2. If this is true, then this makes Hunyuan currently the top open source video model you can use right now. And the awesome thing is they've already released it. So here's the GitHub repo. Here it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. It's already supported in Comfy UI, plus you can also add LightX2V on top of this to speed up your generation even more. I'll likely do a full installation tutorial sometime next week, but meanwhile, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this page in the description below. Now actually, Hunyuan 1.5 wasn't the only open source video generator that was released this week, so we also have another open source model called Kandinsky 5. This is also pretty good. Not only can it generate videos, but also images. So actually, they've released 4 different models. There's Video Pro, which is the most advanced model with 19 billion parameters. So note that this is like more than 2 times larger than Hunyuan 1.5. This is also capable of generating videos up to 10 seconds long. And then we also have Video Lite, which is a lightweight 2 billion parameter model that's way faster, but there's some sacrifice in quality. But this one can run on consumer grade GPUs. And then they've also released these image generation and editing models. Here are some of its video generations for your reference. I mean, for the most part, this is not bad. It does get most things physically correct. As you can see here, the visual quality and motion are also very good. It can even do like different perspectives, such as this like fisheye drone video. Here's quite an epic cinematic shot of this woman transforming into some devil, and the quality is quite good. Or here is some giant sea monster attacking a city. Unfortunately, here is where we start to see some artifacts. I guess with these higher motion shots, we do get like some noticeable warping in the details of the buildings, so the quality isn't as good for these high action shots. And then here's like a 3D animation style example. This one is very good. Here is the gorilla version of Optimus Prime, I guess. This is also not bad. So those are some quick examples. Now, unlike Hunyuan and WAN, there's been fairly little attention given to Kandinsky. I'm not sure why, maybe the quality isn't as great, but there's just not a lot of buzz or additional tools or LoRa's for Kandinsky compared to Hunyuan or WAN. However, everything is released already. If you scroll down this page, it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Plus, the awesome thing is they've also released a Comfy UI workflow. So if I click on this, it contains all the instructions on how to set this up using Comfy UI. Anyways, all the links are up here, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this in the description below. Speaking of AI tools, you've got to check out Genspark, the sponsor of this video. Genspark is becoming the all-in-one workplace unicorn. It can do so many things all by itself, including research, writing reports, making slides, coding up entire games or websites, or even automating phone calls. Here are some crazy things I got it to do. So Genspark has this AI developer agent, which can even help you create full stack websites or apps. For me, I'm just going to go with a simple website, and then let's get it to create a professional website for my AI consulting firm called Axios. I can select from all the top models out there. And here's what I got, a fully functional and responsive website. Or they also have this AI designer agent, which can basically help you design anything you want. So I'm going to upload these 3 photos and then get it to make Black Friday sale posters for my products. And here's what we get. How crazy is that? It automatically made all these professional looking designs just in a few seconds without me having to manually do anything. And they all look fantastic. Genspark also has an AI slides agent, which can autonomously create presentations. For example, let's get it to make a slideshow on the wildlife of Sri Lanka. It's doing a ton of research, and here's what we get. Everything is very beautifully formatted, plus the information is correct. You can also click on this to fact check the content. Plus, they just added some new features, including an AI inbox where you can get AI to manage your email. For example, I can easily get AI to reply to vendors using natural language. Or I can create AI agents to run scheduled tasks automatically. They also added an AI Teams feature, so you can easily invite team members to chat and work on projects together. This is the most powerful agentic AI platform you can use right now. Definitely give Genspark a try. It's free to sign up and you get free credits to start. The link will be in the description below. Earlier this week, in fact on Monday, XAI releases Grok 4.1. This was at the time the best model out there, so it's just an incremental improvement. This is just 0.1. This is not like Grok 5, but here, at least on Monday, on the LM Arena leaderboard where users can blind test different AI models, you can see that Grok 4.1 Thinking and Grok 4 beat the other leading models out there, including Gemini 2.5 Pro and GPT-5 High, which is surprisingly all the way down here. Here's a benchmark for emotional intelligence, and as you can see, Grok 4.1 is, or was, also the leader at that time. It's also very good at creative writing. Now, I was actually gonna cover Grok 4.1 a bit more, but just one day later, Google drops a freaking monster called Gemini 3, which just dominated everything. Basically, it ranks number 1 on like most leaderboards out there, including the LM Arena text leaderboard, as you can see here, as well as web dev and vision. Same with another leaderboard on artificial analysis. Gemini 3 is ranked number 1. Now, I already did a full review video on Gemini 3 when it first came out, so I'm not going to repeat too much here, but here are some additional things I didn't cover in the last video. Here's the table I shared last time where across the board you can see Gemini 3 Pro just dominating everything, except for this one benchmark called SweBench Verified, which tests an AI model's ability on agentic coding. Here, allegedly Anthropic scored the highest. However, Google just pulled this value from Anthropic's self-reported score, which is actually not correct. So if we actually go to this official SweBench Verified leaderboard, you can see that actually Gemini 3 Pro is also ranked number 1. So even for this benchmark, it's number 1. Also in the review video I did this week, I plugged a pretty obscure photo of a hike I did. It's not even the main attraction, but Gemini 3 was able to guess where this was. Now, interestingly, afterwards, GeoBench, which tests an AI model's ability to actually guess a location based on an image, they've added Gemini 3 Pro, and not surprisingly, it's also ranked number 1. Here's the crazy thing, it even beats a professional human player. That means Gemini already beats humans in terms of guessing a location from a photo. And look at the gap, it's actually pretty high. That's how crazy Gemini 3 Pro is. And apparently Gemini 3 Pro is also the best in terms of analyzing medical images. So not only does it beat all the top AI models out there, but it even beats human radiology trainees, which is pretty crazy. I'm sure once we get like Gemini 3.5 or 4, it's going to destroy these board-certified radiologists. Here's another benchmark, Simple QA, where Gemini 3 Pro is now ranked number 1. So, I mean, across the board, Gemini 3 is just by far the best, but it's not perfect. So, actually, Gemini 3 Pro has quite a high hallucination rate, which means there's a risk of it making stuff up a ton of the time. Anyways, those were just some quick additional points I wanted to make on Gemini 3, but definitely see this review video for a full overview of all the crazy things it can do. Now, in addition to Gemini 3, actually, I even tweeted this on X, Gemini 3 isn't even the main highlight this week, because what I think is an even crazier update is Nanobanana Pro, which was released like 2 days afterwards. This is by far the best image generator and editor you can use right now. You can get it to do so many things like generate anyone or any character. It knows pretty much all the famous people out there. You can get it to remaster old games, you can get it to even analyze medical images. This is just an absolute beast. Now again, I did a full review video on that when it first came out, so I'm not going to repeat too much here. I'll link to this video in the description below. Now, aside from those crazy Google updates, actually OpenAI also quietly released their best agentic coding model after Gemini 3 came out. Now, from their previous naming conventions, you might have expected this to be called like GPT 5.1 Codex Pro or High, but nope, it's called GPT 5.1 Codex-Max, just to confuse you even more. Anyways, this is currently their leading agentic coding model. Notice that this is specifically trained to do really well in agentic coding, so it's not meant to be a general model. Here they say that this is built to perform long-running, detailed work that requires like a ton of steps and multi-hour agent loops. So this can just do a really complex task for a really long time in multiple steps, all autonomously without much human intervention. And here, if you compare it to the previous 5.1 Codex High in terms of SWE Lancer and also Terminal Bench, it scores way better. And then here is the main benchmark SWE Bench verified. You can see that Codex-Max, if you set it to High, it scores 76.8%, and if you set it to X High, it's 77.9%. Now, if you take that self-reported value from OpenAI, and if you compare this with the SWE Bench leaderboard, then it does score higher than Gemini 3 Pro, which got 74.2. Anyways, if this is of interest to you, notice that Codex-Max is available in OpenAI's Codex platform for all these paid users. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, all this time, I'm sure there are folks complaining how most of these AI tools are basically useless, they just generate AI slop, it doesn't really contribute much to society. Well, finally, here's an actually useful AI. I think the name is just Proactive Hearing Assistant. They could do better with the naming, but anyways, this is an AI system that basically helps people hear conversations more clearly by automatically separating the voices that they're talking to from everything else. So here's an example. Here is the original sound with the system off.
I'm wearing a pair of Proactive Hearing Assistant. It's basically a hearing assistant device that we developed that is helping to help us listen to the people that we actually want to hear.
Oh, that's actually very interesting. How does it know who you want to listen to?
The dude on the left keeps talking on his phone and it's super noisy, so it's relatively hard to hear what the dude in the middle is saying. But with this hearing assistant, here's what it sounds like.
Our Proactive Hearing Assistant, it's basically a hearing assistant device that we developed that is helping to help us listen to the people that we actually want to hear.
So it was automatically able to detect and remove the other guy talking on his phone and only focus on the person in the middle. Here's another example.
I've been wondering what you were doing during the weekend.
How do you feel, Seattle?
I actually visited this really good
it's
coffee
really
shop.
cool and
It's
chill.
very
There's
artisanal,
really many
so they're very
rain and maybe even
particular
some
about the
snowing,
coffee
maybe.
that they roast.
I see. Because I know like Seattle has like very good coffee. I was wondering if you have any recommendation for coffee shops that maybe I can try out.
You know, this was maybe the first one I went to, but there are lots that I also want to visit as well.
So this can be very useful for a ton of use cases. Now, the awesome thing is they've actually released the dataset and the training code to this. So if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how you can install this and then actually download the dataset and then actually train and evaluate the model yourself. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, Google DeepMind releases WeatherNext 2. this is their most advanced and efficient weather forecasting model. So this system basically uses AI to generate forecasts that are 8 times faster than existing methods and resolution up to 1 hour. This can predict the weather in advance up to the hour level. So this is incredibly powerful. Here it says WeatherNext 2 can predict hundreds of possible weather outcomes from a single starting point, and each prediction of 100 outcomes takes less than a minute on a single TPU, which is Google's tensor processing unit. Here it says it would take hours on a supercomputer using physics-based models. So this thing is not only very performant, but also super efficient. And here it says this WeatherNext 2 surpasses the previous model on 99.9% of variables such as temperature, wind, and humidity. Now here's the magic behind it. Here they basically used a new approach called Functional Generative Network, or FGN for short, which basically injects noise or randomness so that it remains physically realistic. Now, the awesome thing is they're already deploying this WeatherNext 2 across Google's tools, including Search, Gemini, Weather, as well as the Google Maps Weather API. They've released one of the most powerful weather forecasting AIs, and you can tap into it using their API. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, Google releases AntiGravity. This is an IDE or a development platform which is designed to be agent first. So you would basically command a team of AI agents and they would each proceed to autonomously work on your code base and address your task. So it can be like adding a new feature or fixing a bug or refactoring something. You can basically orchestrate a team of agents all within this platform. Now essentially this is kind of like a clone of Windsurf, but there's more to it than that. This also has a built-in browser, which the agents can pull up and actually load your site and test and verify to see that everything works. And if it doesn't work, well, it can detect the error and proceed to fix it all autonomously. I think this is actually the most attractive feature to me. Most of the other IDEs like Cursor, for example, they don't have a built-in browser for the AI model to actually test and troubleshoot the code live. So with this ability, I think it enables the agents to actually be able to do stuff more autonomously and not get stuck in some endless error loops. Now, they've just released it this week, and you can already download it for Windows or Mac or Linux. And right now, it's just in public preview, so you can actually use this at no charge. And this is powered primarily by Google's Gemini 3, but you can also use and switch between different models within the agent. So it's free to use, definitely give this a shot. Upon initial testing, my experience was kind of similar to other reports online where it's still kind of very buggy right now. Plus, even though they say you can use this for free, you kind of run out of the free daily credits after 2 or 3 prompts. So it's quite intensive and it eats up your credits really quickly. Anyways, if you're interested in trying this out, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, this AI is really useful. It's called PhysX-Anything, and this can create 3D models of objects from just a single image. So here are some examples of the 3D objects it has created from just a single photo. Now the really awesome thing is not only does it just create a stationary object, but it's also able to estimate the articulation. In other words, it can actually predict how the object can move. So for example, how the laptop or this garbage bin or this box should open or close. Or, how these switches should turn on or off. And because of its ability to estimate articulation as well, after creating the asset, you can then directly deploy this into any simulation to train robots. So for example, we can deploy the laptop generated from this AI and train a robot on how to manipulate it. Same with these pair of sunglasses or this cupboard here. Now, as you can see here, after taking the image, it uses a new way to actually create the 3D object, which drastically compresses the tokens needed by like 193 times. So this is incredibly efficient. And then these tokens are basically plugged through this vision language model to predict and generate the object. So this includes like the material, kinematics, description, as well as the geometry. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page, the awesome thing is they've already released the code to this. So if you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how you can actually download and run this on your computer. Notice that this is based off of a 3D model generator called Trellis, as well as Qwen 2.5 for the vision language model. They haven't specified the VRAM requirements for this, but given these two dependencies, you probably need a high-end GPU to run this. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further or checking out more demos, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, we have Dr. Tulu. This is basically an open source deep research model that's similar to OpenAI Deep Research. So as you can see here, if this is the prompt, it will proceed to think in multiple steps, first planning what to do, and then it would execute the plan. For example, it can call different tools like web search or data scraping, and then it's going to think through each thing and then proceed to call other tools, and so on and so forth until it gathers all the information it needs, and then it compiles and synthesizes everything into your final answer. Now here's the crazy thing. This is an open source model that's only 8 billion parameters, but as you can see, at least for this Scholar QA version 2 benchmark, it even beats OpenAI's Deep Research as well as Perplexity Deep Research. And then same with this deep research bench, it actually comes pretty close to these closed proprietary models. Now here, note that they've actually released two different Dr. Tulu models. One is trained on reinforcement learning, kind of like DeepSeek, and then the other one is trained on supervised fine-tuning. And so in theory, this one with reinforcement learning performs a bit better, as you can see from these benchmarks. In fact, if you compare all these benchmarks with other open deep models, Dr. Tulu performs the best. Here are some other insightful metrics for your reference. So Dr. Tulu is in pink, and then the last two bars are basically GPT-5 plus web search and OpenAI Deep Research. And you can see that for most of these benchmarks, Dr. Tulu actually comes pretty close, especially for evidence support and evidence synthesis. So it's really impressive how it's able to match the performance of these top closed models, which I assume are like hundreds of billions or over 1 trillion parameters, while Dr. Tulu is only 8 billion parameters. The awesome thing is this is from the Allen Institute, which has a good history of actually open sourcing everything. So here they're also making available the entirety of this Dr. Tulu research and training stack under a permissive license. So if you click on their GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit here, it contains all the instructions on how to set up Dr. Tulu on your computer. This is a very lightweight deep research agent which you can just run locally on your computer. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is super useful. It's called X MLLM, and this is what they call a part-aware multimodal model that's designed for 3D tasks such as 3D model generation and editing and grounding. So first up, this 3D model generator is part-aware, so it can actually generate the model as individual parts, and this allows it to understand and generate objects with complex structures. This is also great for post-processing because when you want to edit the model further, you can only edit certain components of the model. And the nice thing is this is multimodal, so this is essentially a large language model which can actually analyze the object and reason about what exactly it is. So for example, you can chat with it and ask it how many breadsticks are in the basket, and it can actually analyze the object and answer your question. Now, because of this capability, this also allows you to edit 3D objects with natural language. So for example, you can get it to replace the red basket liner with a blue one, and it's able to first detect the basket liner and then replace it with a blue one like this. Or here's another example where we can prompt it to replace her pants with jeans, and here's the result. So here are some examples of its generations, and you can see that they are made of multiple parts. So for example, for this basket of bread, we can choose to explode it into its separate components, and here's what you get. Or same with these sunglasses, we can explode it like this. Or same with this truck, you can see that it's made of different components. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo, but it doesn't look like they've released the code or the models to this yet. Hopefully they will in the future, but meanwhile, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, we have a new open source Omni modal model called Uni-MoE 2 Omni. This is an open source model that is multimodal. So not only can this understand text, but also audio, images, and video. So notice that this is based off of the Qwen 2.57b dense architecture, but here they trained a mixture of experts model on top of that with carefully curated multimodal data. And so here you can see it's capable of understanding as well as generating images, text, and speech. So here are some examples of this in action. We can upload this image of a bar graph and then ask it to find the average of the bottom two countries. and after a ton of thinking, notice that it's able to correctly get the answer. Or here's another example where we can just get it to solve our math homework. So we can just upload this image and it's able to actually analyze this and solve everything and give us the correct answer, which is D. Or like I said, this can also generate images. So you can get it to generate a small puppy taking a nap next to a controller, and here's what you get. Now, honestly, the image quality isn't great. This gives me like early Stable Diffusion or Flux vibes. Here's another example where we get it to generate this painting of a girl with flowing blonde hair in the vibrant hues of a spring forest, and here's what we get. Or like Nanobanana, we can also get this to edit images. So let's prompt it to remove the water bottles on this table, and here's what we get. Or we can also remove the rain from this image, and here's what we get. This also kind of has ControlNet built in, so you can upload an edge map like this and generate a photo from that. Or you can also input a depth map and generate something like this. Now here's an example of both audio and video understanding. Let's say you give it this audio clip.
What dance are the people in the video doing?
And then you give it this video. Well, it's able to analyze both the audio and video all within the same model and then give you the correct answer like this.
Okay, so the people in the video, they're doing ballet.
Now you can also plug audio into here and transcribe it to text. So here's an example.
Goliath makes another discovery. They were certainly no near the solution of their problem. The poor little things, cried Cynthia. Think of them having been turned to the wall all these years. Now what is the sense of it?
And the performance is quite impressive. I mean, if you compare this with other multimodal models of similar sizes, note that this new Uni-MoE on average performs the best. By the way, if you're interested in the architecture of this, it consists of a few key components. First of all, it has a unified encoding layer which can take in and encode audio, images, or video, or text into tokens. This then gets plugged through this Omni modality 3D rope layer so that it can keep track of where and when things happen. So it doesn't matter if it's audio or a video or text, it can keep track of the context of all these inputs via this self-attention layer with 3D rope. And then it also has this dynamic router to efficiently determine where to route the data through this team of experts. So think of this as like a team of AI agents working together to, solve your task. But with this dynamic router, it makes it more efficient. It's able to determine which agent is best for solving which task. And then afterwards, it would go through this decoder component to output either text or audio or images. The awesome thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've actually released everything already. So if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit and then click here, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run Uni-MoE 2 on your computer. Notice that they've released a few different variants of this. The Omni one, of course, handles everything. We also have an image one, which is specialized for image generation and editing, and this text-to-speech one, which is only specialized for text-to-speech. Now, if we click on this Omni one, notice that this is quite huge. This is like 87 gigabytes in size, so you probably won't be able to run this in like a single consumer-grade GPU. You'll need to stack multiple together. But nevertheless, they've released the model weights, so if you are interested in running such a capable omnimodal model locally on your computer, this is a pretty good option. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.